One thing I stopped doing is mixing all the dry ingredients together. I just don't see a point in it, and so I just, when I'm mixing and when I'm adding the dry ingredients, I just scoop in the leaveners and put them in first so that they actually get better mixed when you do that. So don't sift this, don't mix it, just let it be. This smells so good. But you can see how flat they bake. There's not really a dome on top of the cake layers. It bakes pretty flat, which will make it easier when we have to decorate it later. So to me, what makes really good frosting is butter, obviously, lots of unsalted, good quality butter, powdered sugar, and then we're going to add vanilla to this one. And that's it. And really just enough powdered sugar to make it barely sweet. You don't want it to be overly sweet. It's very simple. Now you can see it's really light and fluffy, and also a kind of paler in color. Oh, there we go, kind of. Hello, hello. Okay, okay. So you can see it's much lighter, fluffier. Looks like frosting, because it is. So now we can start decorating. So
now we have everything we need to start frosting and decorating the cake. We have the cake layers, we have the frosting, we have our fresh blueberries that we washed, as well as this blueberry compote. So I made this actually yesterday and forgot to film it, but it's essentially blueberries, fresh or frozen. I actually used frozen for this one. Half a cup of sugar and the juice of half a lemon. And then you just boil that till it gets nice and thick. So we're gonna start with a layer of frosting. And this is a very blueberries and cream flavored cake. I don't know if I mentioned what it's for, but it's for my friend Tom's birthday. I actually made him this exact same cake a few years ago, and so blueberries and cream is his favorite flavor combination. So this is an ode to Tom. We're gonna fill our piping bag with frosting. So just cut about an inch off the bottom. Put this down. And then fill this with frosting. Since we are adding fillings to this cake, it's important that you create a dam around each layer so that it doesn't leak. So pipe a ring around, and then just for extra reinforcement, I actually kind of smooth the inside so that there's no gap between that ring and then the layer of the cake. And then we'll add some blueberry compote. And this is optional. If you just want to add fresh blueberries, you're more than welcome to. It'll be delicious. It just adds a nice kind of jammy texture, which I think is really nice to have kind of these, it's like blueberry syrup along with the fresh blueberries. Lots and lots of fresh blueberries. Now when it comes to actually frosting a cake, I found this to be the easiest method, at least for me. Easiest, quickest, and gives you kind of that smooth look. So I take a piping bag full of frosting, and starting at the bottom, I just essentially just wrap it all around with frosting. It'll look like a cake mummy, but just go very slowly, but just try to cover it entirely with frosting, going all the way from the bottom to the top. And if you run out of frosting in your piping bag, just refill it and keep going. You can see there's some gaps there, but pretty much all covered. And it's gonna look like you have way too much frosting, but that's okay. Then take your bench scraper. This is a bench scraper. And just try to even it out. I have it kind of like at an angle here. It's not totally sticking like perpendicular. Kind of at an angle here and just smoothing the sides. Don't worry if there's still any gaps. So you'll see there are still some gaps. So I'm just gonna take more frosting and fill in those gaps. And then keep going with the bench scraper. So you can see it's pretty covered. It doesn't have to be totally smooth right now. We're just trying to get it covered with some frosting. Add a dollop to the top, then smooth it around. Some people do what's called a crumb coat, which is a really light coating of frosting first, and then they kind of put it in the fridge, let that chill, and then do a final coat of frosting. But I find that if you do this and you cover it in frosting, a lot of frosting first, you don't have to do that step. Okay. So again, we're just trying to get it covered. Don't worry about making it totally even and smooth right now. That actually does look pretty good. It's well covered, you can see there are a few bubbles but no gaps of cake showing. So what I'm going to do next is, this is part of the decoration for this, is the swirl. So I'm going to take the leftover blueberry compote, just the juice is left here, and I'm going to add some frosting to that. So I'm going to just do, you only need a tiny bit of frosting really, like that's plenty. Mix it around. Okay, so you can see it made this kind of purplish frosting. And then what we're going to do is just take this and take just a little bit at a time and just essentially do little dabs of it all along the cake. There's not really a particular pattern, just kind of little dabs here and there. Some on the top too. So we'll start with that. And then again, take your bench scraper, make sure it's nice and clean. And then we're just gonna slowly keep swirling the purple frosting now into the cake. And it's gonna give this really nice swirled effect. And go really slowly. And you want to be gentle, you don't want to over mix them and then it essentially just blends into one color. Just go very slowly and just gently blend it in, and then do the same at the top. So I like how this looks. I'm going to add a little more so that you get some variation of some spots that are a little darker, a little more blended, and then some that are more like the really saturated purple color. But you want to be gentle. You don't want to overdo it. So I'm going to try not to overdo it. This is the finished cake. I think it looks really cool with the very marbled swirl everywhere. You can also do this filled with raspberries and strawberries, but if you do that, I would recommend using like a natural food coloring as opposed to the fruit itself, because those can have a little bit more of like a darker color, especially strawberries tend to not give that bright red color. So now we're just going to decorate on top. Ta-da! Here's the finished cake. I think it looks really beautiful, especially the edible flowers are optional, but it adds just such a nice touch because the yellows in particular really complement the purples and the blues, especially of this cake. So now I'm going to box this up and take it to Tom's on a kickball team, so we're going to take it and share it with the entire team while we celebrate and wish him a happy birthday.